ended with a question. In 2007, the FBI task force reviewed tip number 1,402. The reward was $50,000. He's out there, Agent Forka said. He's watching this report, and he's laughing. Chapter 16, The Art of the Disappear. The fine arts express thieves knew that the best way to hide a $1 million painting wasn't to bury it, but to recontextualize it. Once the van cleared the city limits, it didn't head for a warehouse. It headed for a nondescript suburban garage. There, the crates were open with surgical precision. The frames heavy, ornate things that were easily recognized were destroyed. The canvases were rolled into acid-free tubes and hidden inside the PVC piping of a plumbing contractor's truck. Identity isn't just for people. The leader of the group, a man known only as the curator, whispered as he handled a centuries-old Dutch landscape. If you change the history of an object, you steal its identity. This isn't a masterpiece anymore. It's just cargo. Chapter 17, The Phantom Pain. The victims of Dr. Jorge Martinez were more than just names on a billing statement. They were people whose bodies had been treated as ATM machines. One such victim was Elias Thorne, a retired construction worker with a bad hip. He had gone to Martinez for a simple steroid injection. Martinez, however, had billed for a minimally invasive laminectomy, a surgery that never took place. Chapter 18, The Rehab Industry. As the crime grew, so did the industry designed to fix it. Anita Jans, exhausted by the 600 hours she had spent trying to reclaim her life, finally turned to a company called ID Watchdog. It was a new kind of business, part private investigator, part credit repair, part emotional counselor. Chapter 19, The Blue-Eyed Watcher. Somewhere in a quiet neighborhood in the Chicago suburbs, a man sits in a den filled with books on military history and tactical strategy. He feels the rush again, the one he felt when he hid in the bushes at 6:30 a.m. It's an addiction more refined than the white coal Michael Schreckingist sold. It's the addiction to being the wolf among the sheep. Chapter 20, The Perpetual War. The war on identity theft is a war of attrition. The cycle continues. The sun rises over Colorado, over Illinois, over the sterile clinics and the quiet suburbs. And in the long, reaching shadows of the morning, the next ghost is already waiting. Chapter 21, The Echoes of the Gavel. The courtroom in downtown Chicago was a sanctuary of silence, broken only by the rhythmic scratching of a court reporter's pen. Dr. Jorge Martinez sat at the defense table, his charcoal suit fitting him like armor, though it couldn't hide the slight tremor in his hands. The prosecution had spent weeks building a wall of evidence, ledger after ledger of phantom surgeries, wire transfers to offshore accounts, and the haunting testimony of Elias Thorne. But the centerpiece was the motive for murder. Greed isn't just about the money, the assistant U.S. attorney argued, pointing a finger at Martinez. It's about the fear of losing the mask, Dr. Martinez wasn't afraid of prison. He was afraid of being seen as a failure. He killed Joyce Brandon because she was the only mirror he couldn't break. Martinez remained stoic, his eyes fixed on the seal of the court. He was a man who had spent his life playing God with other people's pain. Now, he was at the mercy of 12 ordinary citizens. The jury took only 6 hours to return a verdict of guilty on all counts, including first-degree murder. As he was led away, the luxury watches and Ferraris were already being auctioned off to repay the victims. The doctor had finally become a ghost of his own making. Chapter 22. The Scent of the Plane. In the Colorado Bureau of Investigation, Agent Danya Davis stared at a flickering monitor. The data was a spider web of IP addresses and burner phone locations. Kimberly Merritt had slipped through their fingers again, leaving behind only the RV and a trail of ruined credit. "She's moving east," Greg said, leaning against the doorframe. "She's hitting small-town banks now, using names we haven't even seen in the system yet. She's learned from Shrekingist. She's not just using the drug to stay awake. She's using it to stay ahead." The hunt moved into the high plains. They found a motel in a town so small it didn't have a stoplight. In the trash can behind room 104, they found the discarded skins of 5 different women IDs, library cards, and a wig that smelled of cheap perfume and meth smoke. "She's not a person anymore," Davis whispered, looking at a grainy surveillance photo from a local convenience store. "She's a collection of stolen fragments. There's nothing left of the real Kimberly Merritt but the addiction." They caught her 3 days later at a Greyhound station. She didn't fight. She just looked at the agents with a hollow stare, her fingers twitching as if searching for a keyboard that wasn't there. Chapter 23. The Silence of the Monet. Marcus Thorne stood in a dimly lit warehouse in a port city he wasn't authorized to name. Before him stood a crate marked Industrial Filters, its lid pried open to reveal a glimpse of golden light and soft, impressionistic brushstrokes. It was the Monet, the soul of the Fine Arts Express heist. "The provenance is broken," Thorne said to the recovery team. "Even though we have the canvas, its history is forever stained. It spent 3 years in the dark, being traded like a commodity between men who didn't even know which way was up. The curator had been caught in a sting operation in Zurich, but the buyers remained in the shadows. They were the men of the gray market, the ones who understood that the true value of a stolen masterpiece wasn't in its display, but in its potential. To them, the painting was a hedge against inflation, an untraceable asset that could be traded for weapons, for influence, or for silence. Thorne reached out a gloved hand and touched the edge of the frame. "We found the art," he sighed, "but we'll never find the culture it took from us." Chapter 24. The Legacy of the Balaclava. In Wheaton, Illinois, the 5-year anniversary of the last robbery passed with a quiet ceremony at the Fifth Third Bank. The tellers who had survived the spree still gathered for coffee on Saturday mornings, a support group for those who had looked into the ice-cold blue eyes behind the mask. "I still see him in the bushes," Jonna England admitted, her voice low. "Every time the sun comes up and the mist is on the grass, I expect to see the tactical hood. It's not just the money he took, it's